Someone once told me, when you're happy, not everyone is clapping, some are calculating. And that's when I realized it's not the sharing of our joy or our pain that is the problem. It's who we share it with. My friends, not every ear that listens deserves to hear your heart. Not every smile hides love. Sometimes it hides a competition. So today, let's talk about something very important. Why you should not share your personal life with everyone. So, my dear friends, before you post, before you vent, before you overshare, pause. Not everything needs to be spoken. Not every truth needs to be told. Some parts of you are meant only for God and those few hearts who love you unconditionally. May your privacy be your peace, and may your silence be your strength. In life, we often assume that if someone is close to us, they are also safe for our emotions. We tend to think that anyone who smiles at us or offers a listening ear is automatically a friend or a well-wisher. But the truth is far more complex. People don't always listen to you with the pure intention of understanding. Some people listen just to gather material for gossip. Some listen out of curiosity, not compassion. And some listen just so they can compare your life to theirs and feel better or worse about themselves. The intention behind the listening matters far more than the act of listening itself. Think about it. You had a really good day. Something beautiful happened at work or in your relationship. You're full of joy and you feel like telling someone. You pick up your phone and call a friend or a colleague, hoping they'd be happy for you. But instead of being excited, you hear a forced, "Wow, that's nice," followed by a long silence, or even worse, a change in topic. Why? Because not everyone claps when you win. Some people count, compare, and calculate. You see, people's reactions often have nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own internal battles. Someone who is jealous may pretend to be supportive, but inside they're burning with insecurity. Someone who is competing with you silently may use your vulnerabilities against you. It's like you're handing them a knife, thinking they'll help you cut your cake, but instead they might just use it to cut your confidence. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you're walking in the rain, holding an umbrella. Someone walks up to you and says, "Can I share your umbrella?" You smile, thinking, "How sweet," and let them in. But moments later, you realize they're not really protecting themselves from the rain. They're just there to poke holes in your umbrella and run away. Now you're left standing in the rain, soaking wet, not because of the storm, but because of misplaced trust. Sharing your personal life is like letting someone inside your umbrella. If they're genuine, they'll walk with you, protect you, and even guide you if you slip. But if their intentions aren't pure, they'll only create leaks and leave when the weather gets worse. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, "Perform your duty without expecting rewards and stay detached." This also applies to sharing. Share not to gain sympathy or applause. Share only with those who have the emotional maturity to hold your truth without dropping it or displaying it. Many of us make the mistake of thinking emotional connection means emotional safety. But emotional connection without discernment is like leaving your house door open just because someone smiled at you from outside. You wouldn't do that with your home. So why do it with your heart? There's a beautiful old saying, "Don't tell people your plans, show them your results." In the same way, don't open your wounds to everyone hoping they'll offer healing. Some might just stare, some might judge, some might even laugh, and very few will actually help you heal. That's the rare group. That's the circle worth keeping. When you're in pain, when you're confused, when you're unsure, the first instinct is to reach out, to speak, to express. And while that's healthy, it's equally important to ask, is this person capable of understanding the depth of what I'm about to say? If not, you're pouring pure water into a dirty cup. What comes out will not be what you intended. Real maturity is not in how well you speak, but in how wisely you stay silent. Wisdom is knowing when to speak and who deserves your truth. You don't have to fake your life, but you don't have to share every part of it either. Sometimes keeping your peace means keeping your privacy. Let me tell you something I've learned the hard way. People forget your kindness, but they remember your weakness. If you share your struggles with the wrong person, they won't help you. They'll store it. And one day, when life puts you at a higher place, they'll use your past against your present. That's why I always say, don't rush to speak. Watch first. Observe their reaction when you win. Do they celebrate or stay silent? Do they uplift you in your lows or disappear conveniently? Test people not through your words, but through time. Because time always reveals the real intentions of those around you. So, my friend, the next time you feel like pouring your heart out, pause. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Remember, some people listen not because they care, but because they're curious. Curiosity is not compassion. Choose your listeners like you choose your inner circle, with care, with caution, and with clarity. Not everyone who listens deserves to hear. Protect your peace, protect your privacy, and most importantly, protect your heart. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of peace. In a world that constantly pushes us to speak, to post, to update, and to explain, choosing silence is like taking a step back from the noise to find clarity. Silence is powerful. It is often mistaken for weakness, but in reality, it is a shield, one that protects your inner peace, your dignity, and your mental balance. When you learn to embrace silence, you begin to hear the most important voice of all, your own. Have you ever noticed that the deepest waters are the most silent? The ocean doesn't need to shout to prove its depth. In the same way, you don't need to constantly speak or share to validate your journey. In our everyday lives, we often feel pressure to explain ourselves to others, why we made a certain decision, why we're still single, why we chose one path over another. But the truth is, silence can often answer better than words ever could. When people don't get the explanation they crave, they create one in their heads. Let them. Your peace is worth more than their opinion. There's a beautiful story about Buddha. One day, someone came to him and began insulting him publicly, calling him names and challenging his teachings. Buddha listened in silence. His disciples were angry and wanted to respond, but Buddha simply smiled. When the man finished, Buddha said, "If someone brings you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man said, "To the one who brought it." Buddha replied, "Exactly. I do not accept your anger, your words, your negativity, so they remain with you." That's the power of silence. It does not mean you are powerless. It means you are in control. Think about a moment in your life when you are misunderstood. Maybe a family member judged you, or a colleague spread rumors about you. Your first instinct might have been to defend yourself, but did it help? Often, the more we try to explain, the deeper we get pulled into unnecessary drama. Silence, on the other hand, keeps your soul clean. When you stay silent, You give life a chance to prove the truth on its own. We also need silence, not just in conflict, but in decision making. When life gets loud, when opinions, expectations, and responsibilities crowd your mind, it is in silence that you find your direction. Picture this: a snow globe that's been shaken. Everything is blurry, but let it rest in stillness and clarity returns. That's what silence does to your thoughts. It lets the mental snow settle, revealing what truly matters. In our relationships, too, silence can be golden. When we are hurt, we often speak from emotion, not wisdom. Words said in pain can never be taken back. Silence in those moments saves relationships. It gives us time to breathe, to reflect, to process. It creates space where healing can begin. There's a modern myth that if you don't speak up all the time, you'll be forgotten. That silence is a sign of submission. But actually, silence is a sign of strength. It says, I don't need to prove anything. I don't need your validation. I'm at peace with my truth. And that kind of inner confidence cannot be shaken. On social media, everyone is shouting about their achievements, their heartbreaks, their goals, their disappointments. But the ones who inspire us the most aren't always the loudest. They're the ones who walk quietly but live deeply. Their lives are like a garden that grows silently, but when it blooms, it changes the atmosphere. You don't have to respond to every insult. You don't have to correct every wrong opinion about you. You don't have to share every emotion you feel. Sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all. Just breathe. Just watch. Just trust that the truth will echo louder than any rumor. A wise person once said, don't speak unless it improves the silence. Let your actions speak, let your peace speak. Because what you protect in silence becomes your strength in life. Your calm mind becomes your compass, and your silence becomes your strategy. Silence doesn't mean you're hiding, it means you're healing. It doesn't mean you're retreating, it means you're realigning. In that sacred quiet, your soul gets the space it needs to rise again. Like a seed growing in the dark soil before it breaks the surface and becomes a tree, your growth often happens in your quietest moments. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to defend yourself, or to overshare, take a step back. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Or am I just filling the space because I'm uncomfortable with silence? Trust that silence is not empty. It's full of answers. It's full of healing. It's full of grace. When you master the art of silence, you don't just avoid conflict, you rise above it. You don't just protect your peace, you amplify it. And most importantly, you learn to live from the inside out, not the outside in. Let the world shout. Let the noise rise. That is where your real power lives. Trust is one of the most precious gifts you can give someone. And yet, many of us hand it out like candy without ever stopping to consider if the person receiving it has earned it. It's natural. We all want to believe in the good of others. We want to think that because someone smiles at us, spends time with us, or says nice things, they deserve a front row seat to the most personal parts of our lives. But here's the truth: not everyone who walks beside you is meant to walk inside your heart. Think of trust like a bank account. You don't just give your ATM card and PIN code to a stranger, right? Why? Because with that information, they could empty your life savings. Now ask yourself, how often have you handed over the emotional pin code, to someone who didn't deserve it. You opened your heart, shared your secrets, expressed your pain, and later found out that your vulnerability became a topic at someone else's dinner table. That's the cost of giving unearned trust. We often confuse familiarity with loyalty. Just because someone has been around us for a long time, we assume they're trustworthy. But time doesn't always reveal loyalty. Behavior does. You may have known someone for 10 years, but if they speak ill of others to you, it's only a matter of time before they speak of you to others. If someone is quick to share other people's personal matters with you, you must understand they're rehearsing the same performance that will soon include you. Let's look at a simple everyday example. Imagine you buy a beautiful, delicate crystal vase, expensive, valuable, and fragile. Would you hand it to just anyone to carry? Or would you first see how carefully they handle things? The same principle applies to your personal life. Your struggles, dreams, relationships, and emotions are delicate parts of you. If someone is careless with other people's stories, why would they be careful with yours? We live in a world where everyone is in a hurry to speak, to share, to connect. But depth doesn't come from, it comes from patience and testing. Just like you don't marry someone after the first date, you shouldn't share your inner world with someone just because they seem nice. Observe them. Test their silence. Can they keep what you told them private? Or do they rush to someone else with your story? I remember a young man once telling me that he shared his breakup story with a friend in confidence. He was emotional, raw, and just needed someone to listen. But 2 days later, he heard his story repeated with dramatic exaggeration in a group setting. He felt betrayed, not just because his secret was shared, but because he trusted someone who wasn't ready to handle it. That's the heartbreak of misplaced trust. It's not the event, it's the shock that someone you believed in didn't value your truth. In spiritual life, we're taught to be cautious about what we allow into our inner world. Trust is not about building walls, it's about installing gates. Gates that open only for those who have shown they understand the value of what lies inside. It's about saying, I'm not closed off, but I'm selective. My peace is sacred. My journey is precious. And I will not let just anyone walk through it. Real trust is not built on words. It's built on consistency. Who shows up when you're down? Who celebrates without jealousy when you're up? Who respects your absence and honors your presence? These are the silent tests of trustworthiness. And the people who pass these tests, they don't need to be told everything. You feel safe with them, even in silence. Let's take another example. In ancient times, kings didn't let just anyone into the royal chamber. Only the most loyal, the most tested, the most faithful were granted that privilege. Why? Because what happened inside the palace affected the entire kingdom. Your life is no different. You are the king or queen of your inner world. What you allow inside affects your mental peace, your emotional strength, and your spiritual growth. So be wise. Don't throw open the palace gates just because someone knocked politely. There's a power in being selective with your trust. It doesn't make you rude, it makes you wise. It doesn't mean you're unfriendly, it means you value your energy. The more you grow, the more you'll realize that your time, your truth, and your trust are not to be given freely. They're treasures. And treasures are protected, not published. So if you've ever been betrayed, don't let that close your heart. Let it teach your mind. Be softer with your emotions, but sharper with your choices. Build trust slowly, Watch actions, not just words. And remember, it's better to have one person you can trust completely than 100 who only pretend to care. In the end, trust is not something you give, it's something others earn. And when someone truly earns it, they won't break it, they'll guard it, they'll honor it. And that, my friend, is when your trust becomes your strength, not your weakness. There's a silent expectation most of us carry that when we speak from the heart, the other person will listen with theirs. That when we open up and express something vulnerable, deep, or raw, the person on the receiving end will handle our truth with the same sensitivity and care that we do. But the hard reality is not everyone is equipped to handle the weight of your truth. Some people can barely manage their own emotions, let alone hold space for yours. That's why sharing your personal life with everyone can often lead not to relief, but to regret. Your truth is like a fragile, priceless sculpture, delicate, detailed, and deeply personal. And just as you wouldn't hand that sculpture to someone with clumsy hands, you shouldn't hand over your truth to someone with a careless heart. There are people who will misunderstand your story, not because you didn't explain it well, but because they simply don't have the emotional depth to grasp it. There are people who will misinterpret your vulnerability as weakness or your honesty as drama because they are too entangled in their own unresolved emotions to truly see you. Think of it like this: if you show a complex piece of art to someone who has never studied or appreciated fine art, they might say, "What is this? I don't get it." But show it to someone who understands its depth, and they will stand in awe, absorbing every color, every stroke, every layer of meaning. Your truth is that piece of art. It requires the right eyes, the right heart, the right mind to understand and appreciate it. Let me share a simple daily life example. Imagine a young woman who has gone through a traumatic relationship. She trusted someone, gave her best, and ended up broken. After months of healing, she decides to share her story with a friend, expecting support and understanding. But instead of comfort, the friend says, "Maybe you're just too emotional," or "You should have seen it coming." At that moment, the woman feels not only hurt, but also foolish for opening up. What happened? The friend wasn't bad, just unequipped. She lacked the emotional tools to deal with someone else's pain. This is why it's important to be careful, not secretive, but intentional, about whom you confide in. Everyone doesn't deserve access to your inner world. It's not about being cold or guarded, it's about being wise. Because once a personal truth is out, you can't take it back. It lives in someone else's memory now. And how they use it is beyond your control. If they are trustworthy, your truth becomes sacred. But if they are not, your truth becomes gossip, judgment, or a weapon. We often mistake closeness for capacity. Just because someone is close to you, family, a longtime friend, or a colleague, doesn't mean they have the emotional maturity to handle what you're going through. You might be opening up to someone who hasn't even healed from their own pain, and instead of offering empathy, they project their unhealed trauma back onto you. Sometimes, in our eagerness to feel heard, we speak too soon. But timing matters, maturity matters. The listener's emotional strength matters. A flower doesn't bloom in winter for a reason, because the environment isn't right. Likewise, your truth will not bloom in every heart. It needs fertile ground, someone with patience, compassion, and understanding. In spiritual practice, we are taught to observe before we speak, to feel the energy of a person before we share something precious. Because words are not just sounds, they are vibrations. And when those vibrations are received by a bitter or negative soul, they get twisted, misunderstood, and thrown back at us in forms we never expected. You don't owe anyone your truth. Let that sink in. You don't have to explain your past, justify your decisions, or unpack your struggles to anyone who hasn't earned the right to hear them. Just like a doctor wouldn't give a sharp surgical tool to an untrained person, you shouldn't give your deepest truths to someone who isn't emotionally equipped to hold them with care. And yes, there will be people who will call you too quiet, too private, too reserved. Let them. What they call mystery, you call protection. What they call distance, you call wisdom. It's not your responsibility to make your life understandable to everyone. It's your responsibility to live it in a way that honors your peace. Let your life speak louder than your explanations. Let your growth be the answer to their questions. And let your silence be the boundary that protects the truth not everyone deserves to hear. Not everyone can handle your truth, and that's okay. It doesn't mean your truth isn't valid. It means it's precious. And precious things are always shared with care, not casually. So speak less, observe more, and always remember the right ears will hear you, even in your silence. While the wrong ones, we are living in an age where silence is rare and privacy is becoming extinct. The moment something happens in our lives, whether it's good, bad, heartbreaking, or beautiful, our first instinct is to reach for our phones, open our social media apps and post a photo, a status, a story, a video, as if validation from the digital world is what makes our experiences real. But here's something to reflect on. Just because something happened to you doesn't mean the whole world needs to know. Social media isn't your personal diary, and your life isn't a reality show. Some chapters are meant to be lived, not shared. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine a woman going through a painful breakup. In her emotional state, she starts posting cryptic quotes, emotional stories, and photos that reflect her pain. She receives likes, comments, and virtual hugs. For a moment, it feels comforting, but slowly that comfort turns into discomfort. People start gossiping, some start judging, others begin to pity her. What began as a search for healing turns into a stage for spectators. That's the danger of treating social media as your therapist. It's not designed to heal you, it's designed to expose you. Your personal life, your struggles, your dreams, your relationships is sacred. And sacred things lose their power when they are handled carelessly. When you share everything online, you open yourself to interpretation, misjudgment, and sometimes even mockery. Not because people are bad, but because not everyone understands your journey. Not everyone claps when you win. Some people scroll past your joy with envy in their hearts and smiles on their faces. And some wait patiently, silently for your downfall, just to say, I knew it wouldn't last. The truth is, the more people know about your private life, the more power they have to manipulate your emotions. That's why the strongest people often look like mysteries. They aren't hiding, they're protecting. They're choosing peace over attention, wisdom over noise. And that's not being secretive, that's being selective. We often post online hoping for connection. We want to feel seen, heard, and understood. But social media isn't the right place to meet those needs. Because on these platforms, Most people aren't listening to understand, they're watching to react. You may pour out your heart in a heartfelt post, and someone will simply double tap it while scrolling past. And that's the thing, we've started confusing digital responses with real emotional support. A like is not love, a comment is not care, a view is not validation. There's another side to this too. When we constantly share our highs, we set ourselves up for silent pressure. Say you post a picture with your partner every other day, showing the world your happiness. But when things start falling apart, you feel like you can't stop posting because people might start asking questions. So you keep the illusion alive, smiling outside while crumbling inside. Why? Because you've already made your relationship public property. And now you feel obligated to perform for the audience you created. That's not freedom. That's a prison built by your own hands. There's power in privacy. There's dignity in discretion. You can celebrate without announcing. You can grieve without broadcasting. You can grow without documenting every step. The most meaningful parts of your life are often the ones no one sees. The late night tears, the silent prayers, the breakthroughs that came after months of pain. These moments shape you more than any selfie or story ever could. Think of the people you admire most, not the ones who post the most, but the ones who move in silence, who live deeply, who speak with wisdom. These are people who understand that not everything deserves an audience, that real strength is built in the quiet moments, not in the loud updates, that what the world doesn't see is often more valuable than what it does. There's nothing wrong with sharing your life, but ask yourself, why am I sharing this? Is it for connection, attention, approval, or habit? If it's not coming from a place of peace, maybe it's better left unposted, because once it's out there, it's no longer yours alone. It belongs to public memory, and public opinion is not always kind. So the next time your fingers hover over the share button, pause, breathe, reflect. Some things are more beautiful when kept between you and God. Some victories feel better when celebrated in private, and some wounds heal faster when treated in silence, away from the spotlight. Your story is sacred. Don't trade its power for temporary attention. Let your life speak in real moments, not just curated posts. Is that the end of the day, peace is greater than popularity. And wisdom, it's knowing what to keep, what to share, and what to simply live without explanation.